Towards the end of the 1870s, the Marine Nationale was beginning to recover from the after-effects of the Franco-Prussian War on its budget, and the Jeune École had yet to formally bed itself into French naval doctrine. Thus, when the newly formed Italian state began a programme of large warship construction, the French found themselves with another potential foe in the Mediterranean apart from the British fleet based at Malta. This had prompted a series of ships in response, most of which had carried 2 heavy guns aft on the centre line and 2 on wing-mounted barbettes forward, with a couple of exceptions. The most recent, the Admiral Baudin class, had kept the 2 guns aft but moved to a single heavy gun forward, also on the centre line. These ships had generally aimed to try and get the largest guns possible, in keeping with Italian and British designs of the period. But problems with the new large French guns, combined with the recent development of a longer-barrelled, smaller gun with new propellant that promised similar or better penetration with less weight, prompted the Amiral Baudin class to be curtailed at 2 out of the planned 6 vessels. The other 4 would be built to a revised design. This called for the new 340mm or 13.4-inch Model 1881 gun to be the main armament, which would also be laid out in a new style, with a single gun fore and another gun aft, both on the centre line, and another 2 amidships, 1 on each side. This gave a total of 4 guns, with 3 able to bear at any angle. Unfortunately, it seemed no one had double-checked the calculations in the design, and far too late it was realised that the hull was actually too small for this idea to work and also remain stable. 3 of the revised ships were yet to be laid down, and so the whole design would be modified to accommodate the full armament, but the first of the proposed 4 ships, Hoche, was already well underway, having had her keel laid down in August 1881. It was possible to make her hull a little bit longer, but no wider, and so the wing-mounted guns would just have to be smaller. This resulted in a unique ship with a pair of single 340mm or 13.4-inch guns, 1 fore and 1 aft, with the wing mounts carrying single 274mm or 10.8-inch guns, with numerous 138mm or 5.4-inch guns scattered around as anti-torpedo boat and hail of fire weapons, most of them mounted in the hull and the rest in the superstructure. Pure anti-torpedo boat work was handled by almost 2 dozen 47mm and 37mm guns ranged in the superstructure and in the fighting tops, plus a number of above-water torpedo tubes, one astern and the others split down either broadside. Armour was made up of a full-length but low-height belt of compound armour up to 18 inches thick at the waterline, with just over 3 inches of deck armour and 16-inch thick barbettes. A pair of vertical double expansion or compound engines sent 12,000 indicated horsepower via 2 screws for a design speed of 16.5 knots. She also came with a ram bow, which fed into a plough-like bow structure that was designed to increase overall apparent length underwater without much increasing the ship's weight, which also helped with speed. A significant tumble home was also included in an effort to save top weight, and this resulted in a series of issues piling up. The lack of deck space for the boats meant that the boats were being stuck almost everywhere. The lack of volume above the machinery decks meant more lightweight superstructure to house the men being installed, and all of this crowding meant that it was almost impossible to get from fore to aft without entering the ship and negotiating many doors and hatches, and so a series of flying walkways were also installed above it all. By the time she emerged into the world, commissioning in 1890 after launch in 1886, her busy above-water superstructure led some of her contemporaries to dub her Le Grand Hôtel, from which many memes have later been made. Unsurprisingly, she was somewhat overweight, which ended up submerging the belt for the most part and made her relatively unstable. This, in turn, meant that she spent the first decade of her service almost as much in port being refitted and revised as she did on active duty. This reduced the count of some of the lighter guns, replaced the vertical compound engines with vertical triple expansion engines, and cut down some of the more egregious superstructure, which restored her waterline to something approximating what it should have been in the first place. Initially serving in the Channel, She would then spend a few years in the Mediterranean before rejoining the French Northern Squadron in 1895, where she would spend the rest of her active frontline career, taking part in numerous exercises before being moved into the reserves in 1902, which saw the ship move back to the Mediterranean where the reserved forces were kept. However, these ships were often brought out of reserve for fleet exercises. She would remain in this location until late 1913, when she was judged to be entirely obsolete and expended as a live fire target off of Toulon.
That's it for this video. Thanks for watching. If you have a comment or suggestion for a ship to review, let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to comment on the pinned post for dry dock questions.